Morning guys. So let's begin from the last chapter related to BeanShell scripting. So we're discussing that we have a BeanShell sampler that is used to make requests using this scripting, and we can capture variables and print something in logs as per your requirement. So let's move ahead and continue from where we left. So let's talk about BeanShell preprocessor in this chapter now. So for example, let's disable it for now because we don't need it anymore, and say we have one request going to the Google main page, and let's put one more request. I'm not explaining you any real-time example, just explaining you how you can make use of this BeanShell sampler preprocessor. I'm sorry. So let's say another request is with Gmail path on the same server, and let's attach a preprocessor here, that is your BeanShell preprocessor. Clear up the results and execute. Oh, it's with some parameters very defined, so let's delete it as of now. So I have one HTTP request and then another HTTP request. So clear out the results and say 1. So execute your script again. So now see, you have a one request where you get response as response code 200 and response message okay. And so let's say for example you want to capture the response code and response message and display the same in logs so that you can see your logs are running and everything is passing and all. So we have CTX, that is Jmeter's context variables. So this would make use of many methods available online. So you can search for Jmeter's context variable and you'll see that you can access a lot of methods by making use of it. And then also you have PREV. This is for something that can help you extracting response from your previous sampler. And this is what we want to do here, right? Because this sampler executes, gives results, so we want to extract the result out from here. So let's put prev dot, let's talk about response code. So get response code. Okay, so we can store this in a variable, say response code, and put everything in bracket so that you can retrieve the value from this function. So let's say your response code is now stored in your variable RC. Now you can put the value, you can print the value of this. Say response code is concatenate operator, put a space in between, again concatenate, and say RC, right? So this would print your response code. So clear the logs, rerun it, and you'll see that your response code is 200. Perfect. So let's talk about response message now, which is okay or which may not be okay if your request is failing. If you're not getting 200 as a response code, your response message would not be okay. So let's say you have a variable response message, that is RM, and you want to store the value. So use the same prev.get response, message. Close it, close the bracket. So now your variable RM has your response message, and you can print it using log.info, write as response message is, word commas, concatenate operator, put a space, again concatenate, and then your RM. and put a semicolon. So let's execute it now and see you're getting both or not. So you have response code is 200 and response message is okay. So these were just the two functions that you can make use of with Prev. There would be many other also. You can get response, I mean you can get the sampler or the current sampler and various other things that you can make use of. So let's talk about something which you can use making use of this BeanShell sampler. So let's enable it now. For example, let's say you have a HTTP request. I'm not doing any real-time example again, just explaining you the concept. So let's say your request goes with user ID and it could be anything. So for example, if you have only one user ID, you can hard code it. But as we were discussing in the previous chapter, you make use of CSV dataset config, user-defined variables, and many other things to get dynamic data. So let's say you want to get the dynamic user ID from variables. So let's declare a variable directly here, and then we'll configure it in our script. So let's say I have user ID, right? So I have a user ID variable now. So let's go back to this script. We can remove it because we don't want it. So let's keep the thread number because I will explain you how and what it can do benefit to us. So let's say now I have a variable user ID. So it's the same. I've defined it in capital letters because I have specified here in capital letters. So I can also remove this one because I don't need multiple requests, sorry. Remove, yes. So I have one listener now and one sampler in which my user ID is a variable and then a BeanShell sampler where I'm dynamically generating values for this variable, right? So I have a variable user ID. So let's say vars.put. I want to put some values in this user ID. Inverted commas, user ID, comma. So let's say, for example, I'm just doing it for example here, or let me open a notepad. Let's say I want something like UID1, UID2, UID2, UID3, UID4, and so on. So I want my each thread to pick one values out of this. So either I would, configure it directly in user parameters with variables, or I would use a, CSV dataset config. Let's see if I don't want to use any of them, how can I do it? So I am saying that I'm using a variable user ID in my request, and I want my user ID to be dynamic. So let's say if I want to put it UID and then some number. So let's concatenate it with the value of thread num, right? So now it would be, for example, your first thread runs UID1, UID2, UID3. So let's increase the number of threads. Let's say it is 5. So for 5 threads, I should get a different value of my variable user ID. So every time request should go, this parameter should differ. So let's execute and see the request and the parameters which are going along with it. So this is the first request which is going with user ID is UID0. Okay, perfect. Then UID1, UID2, UID3, and UID4. So for 5 threads, every time your user ID has a different value which you have generated from your BeanShell scripting. So this is just an example what you can do. Otherwise also you can put the loop count here, You can define variables, assign values, retrieve value out of variables. Then you can use all these functions, get the response code, response message, as well as a sample result if you want to print it out here. You can also write your results in a file, many other functions. If you go on and explore about BeanShell scripting more, you get to know what functions you can use in order to make your scripts reusable and maybe a perfect. More than just doing it from the UI, you can also do it from the script. So this is all I had in this BeanShell scripting. Just wanted to explain the basics. Rest I'm sure you guys can explore and do it. So thanks for now.